Joining us now with an in-depth look at security clearance issues is Michael Greenberger, founder and director of the University of Maryland Center for Health and Homeland Security. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
You know, as soon as tomorrow we could hear from the U.S. government about what it plans to do to evaluate security and access. And so we heard in Jim's piece about all the gaps and lapses that are around there. So what do you recommend should take place? And what is your take on the government's response so far?
Well, I think it's good that the government has finally acknowledged that the security clearance system is broken, and it will require vast reform of that system. We have almost 5 million Americans have security clearances, and many of those, probably a third, don't work for the federal government but work for contractors. And in this case, we had somebody who was working for a subcontractor, that is right below the contractor. And in fact, leaving security clearances aside, in most United States businesses, somebody with his record would have trouble getting a job. And at that very elementary level, his company had done a security check which was faulty and did not come up with the information about his run-in with police, 3 major run-ins with police, and his mental health problems. With regard to the security clearance issue, we have contractors doing security clearance on contractor employees. I have frequently been asked to give references for students of mine. It is a very weak system, and anybody who wants to evade it can evade it. I think it needs to be tightened up tremendously. And I don't think there's enough emphasis. Mental health is supposed to be taken into account, but when you look at the action taken, they will only decline the security clearance if somebody's been judicially acclaimed to have mental health problems, and that's a very high standard.
You mentioned how big of an undertaking this would be. Do you think, though, major changes could come sooner than later, or is this just too big? I mean, people around the world see this and just cannot believe how easy it is for people to get into certain spots.
Look, first steps need to be taken, and the test will be how serious Congress is, the Department of Defense, and the executive branch about this. But you know, after 9/11, we had a 9/11 commission that told us what went wrong and gave a very complete report. We had a further commission in 2004 that studied our intelligence lapses. So these things do take time, but they've got to start somewhere. And I think there can be fixes. We do not need 5 million people with security clearances. A lot of that has to do with the fact that security clearances, you're secure to handle classified information. We have far too much information that's classified. And we rely too heavily on contractors, and that's a matter of our budget problems. It is cheaper to get contractors to do the federal job than it is to have government employees. But contractors have a financial incentive, so they, I think, either known or unknown, are pushing people through to work for the contractor, so the contractor can make profits, and they are not careful enough, as a government agency would be, that wants to make sure that the employee is secure.
Is there any other country in the world that has this dynamic with contractors working for the government, working for the military? Or is the United States really the only country out there that does this?
I'm not an expert on other world operations, but from my general knowledge, yes, it's exceptional. The American people don't understand it. Often when you're working with somebody you think is a federal government employee, they're actually a contractor. And in fact, my students, the law students who graduate, there aren't a lot of law jobs right now in the United States, and they're getting jobs with contractors who are placing them in federal government agencies. So the one thing that the American public has to learn is that your government is being largely run by contractors. For example, Booz Allen Hamilton in the United States, they have more power than many senators or congressmen have. And with the Snowden situation, you didn't hear any criticism of Booz Allen. Snowden was an employee of Booz Allen. He should have never been hired by Booz Allen. He should never gotten a security clearance.
All right, Michael Greenberger, we appreciate your time. We'll definitely bring you back for a further conversation. Thank you so much.